Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics and, well, Prime Minister's Questions is something I'm planning on doing each week, going through that. But, of course, there was another momentous speech from the Prime Minister today, not in the Commons. So has been widely reported in a meeting of Conservative MPs, Theresa May has agreed to step down if her withdrawal agreement is passed. Now, there was no other possible reason for calling this meeting with her backbenchers today. The only element of doubt was in the nature of her departure. Would she quit immediately with a caretaker Prime Minister appointed, or would she stay on until the leadership contest was concluded? Now, by all accounts, no firm date was set, so it could be that she will remain until a new leader is elected, which is reasonable. The question would be, how soon would the leadership election begin? Simply saying that she would not carry out the next stage of negotiations, which is what she has said, is not the same as saying she'd step down right away. But a bigger question remains. If her deal doesn't pass, what then? There may still be MPs who oppose her deal and don't give a fig whether she stays or goes. They may even be ones who want her to stay. Her complete inability to lead is not really a hindrance to those wanting us to accidentally crash out of the EU without a deal. So much so that I don't really understand why Jacob Rees-Mogg seems so desperate for it, unless of course he's just remembering back to the time when Theresa May was the Home Secretary and completely screwed him over at the last second. Maybe he thinks she might pull the same trick. But in earlier events, as I say, in Prime Minister's Questions itself, I noticed before I was actually able to watch it that journalists were reporting and saying how good it was today, how effective she was, as if freedom from the shackles of leadership were being discarded and she was going, as one person put it, in all guns blazing. So I thought, oh, I'm going to watch this. Now, I know I'm biased against Conservatives, but I didn't see that at all. A good performance is when you make your opponents look foolish. It's a bit like, you see on videos sometimes on YouTube and you'll say, oh, so-and-so destroys so-and-so. And almost every single time, what they actually mean by that is you agree with what they said. Whereas what I would take that to mean is someone debated very well. Makes no difference whether I agree or disagree with their arguments. They did such a good argument of the debating. Their debating skills were so legendary that they actually defeated their opponent, even if their opponent was actually correct. Doesn't matter. And that's what I'd have expected today. But that's not what happened. I think it was just that simply she had the backing of Tory MPs today. They were cheering her on. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn, for example, for once came out with actually a decent quote. He said, you know the scale of the crisis when the TUC and the CBI are united. For those who don't know what that means, TUC, Trades Unions Congress, they represent, obviously, a great many workers in the country. CBI represent businesses. And it is a sad state of affairs, I have to say, when the main organisation representing businesses and that representing workers is so often at odds with each other. It's disappointing. But he's right. I don't recall them ever issuing a joint statement together. And it lays bare just how bad Brexit is for everyone. Both businesses and workers are saying it's going to hurt them badly. And if businesses and workers are going to be hurt badly, who the hell benefits? We all know the answer to that one, but their number doesn't add up to 17.4 million. Oh, it's almost like a load of people voted for something that would be bad for them. Anyway, in terms of the exchanges, I'm not really sure how I can agree that her performance was good. It was just well supported. Jeremy Corbyn asked questions to jeers from the Tory benchers. Theresa May stood up and said words that weren't actually answering the questions to cheers from the Tory benchers. That was all there was to it. If you were just not listening to what they were saying, but just listening to the cheers and things like that, you might think, yeah, they're getting right behind Theresa May here. So the best of it that can be said is that the Conservatives gave her a rousing backing. Possibly either out of regret or joy that she's about to fall on her sword. She hadn't made the announcement yet then, but everyone knew what she was going to be saying, or at least the bare bones of it. But as for what may, for what anyone knew at the time may have been her last PMQs, it's not actually going to be. But it's certainly going to be one of her last. Is it? I mean, everyone is one of your last, isn't it? She's still getting it from all sides, though, today. It's not like the opposition MPs all attacked her and then her... Because usually what you get is a few toadies who stand up and then they cede a question. They ask something to which the Prime Minister can give a flourish of some success that she's had. But that's not what happened at all. You know, she was accused of betrayal by a hard Brexiteer for agreeing to any length of extension, saying his constituents would never trust her again. In fact, I could hardly find a kind comment coming towards her from anywhere in the House. She was stuck in the middle of a circle of shame. The only thing about it was that she was still defiant and the Tories were still cheering her whenever she said something, urging her on as she answered. Perhaps that's what allowed some of those journalists present to conclude that her performance today was a good one. But it's rather like a football team thinking it's done well after being cheered off the pitch after a 10-0 bashing. So what are the chances of her deal passing then this time? Because, you know, remember, her stepping down is contingent upon her deal passing. For a start, she has to be allowed to let it go up for a vote. Remember, the Speaker said if the proposal doesn't significantly change, it won't go up. Without substantial changes, it ain't going up for a vote. So she claims there was a significant development last week at the EU summit. She just hasn't told us about it. And that the EU have given her additional assurances, which is exactly what I said would happen for her to be able to put it up for a third vote. I mean, I would go in this situation, whatever, just let it go for a vote. We all know it's the same, but it's not worth arguing the toss. It seems the Speaker agrees. He made a statement again today saying he expects the government to meet the test of change. He obviously hasn't seen the proposal yet. He can't give a guarantee, but he said he expects it to. So realistically, it can go up for a vote this week. Normally you would think Thursday because Parliament doesn't normally sit on a Friday, but Parliament may vote to sit on Friday. I mean, some MPs do come in on Friday and debate things, but you don't have like major votes. But they may do this Friday. I mean, it is technically exit day after all. So the Prime Minister could put it through, no problem, I would imagine. Now, Jacob Rees-Mogg, who is one of the key figures in this, he was quoted as saying today, in justifying supporting the deal, remember what he said before? He said that May's deal was, not only did he say it was worse than no deal, okay, he said it's worse than even staying in the EU. He said that this was the devil itself. He said it would make us a slave state. It's worse than no deal. It's worse than staying in the EU. He's now going to support it. This thing that is worse than anything. You know, and what he's quoted as saying is, I think we have got to the point where legally leaving is better than not leaving at all. Now, there's a couple of things about that. First of all, I'm glad that he acknowledges that his version of leaving was not doing so legally. But second of all, so he says her deal now is better than not leaving. But before he said it's worse than not leaving. But people will still follow him. You know, the old double speak kicks in. If you read 1984, people will seamlessly go from, oh, this is even worse than staying in the EU. Oh, no, of course, at least it's better than staying in the EU. He has changed his conditions, though. You know, so at the weekend it was being reported his condition was that he would support her if May agreed to step down. So she wouldn't have any part to play in the following negotiations. But, you know, that condition's changed. Just like when he pretended to potentially support her the second time round. This time he said he'll support it if she wins the DUP round. Naturally, she won't. Because as I reported yesterday, they've put their foot right down on the no button. So Jacob Rees-Mogg, by changing the terms of his support, basically won't have to.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
But we know the backstop will still be there. The DUP have been talking to May since the summit, so she would surely have shared this significant development. So the DUP writing an article in the Telegraph this week, firmly stating that they won't agree to support it, must surely put the lid on it. So unless there is more support to be had on the opposition benches, it will lose for a third time. Maybe by not very much. It all depends, doesn't it? If that ERG bloc decides to vote for it anyway because Theresa May has agreed to step down, let's just show some willing here. It may fail by a little bit. If they just decide, well, you haven't got the DUP on board, there's no point, no, we're voting against it, then it still loses badly. And then what? Whether it loses badly or just by a little bit, her deal won't have passed. She won't have to step down, according to her speech this week. The Tories wanting her to go will be right annoyed. We'll still be nowhere nearer getting an outcome. MPs all voting on things tonight, but as interesting as the results will be for certain, and I want to talk about those tonight, it won't settle on anything just yet. And the Prime Minister has refused to accept the results of the votes anyway. She'll support them, I imagine, if she gets the ones she wants to win. And if others look more likely that she doesn't like, she'll just, well, she's already said she's not going to accept them anyway. So as momentous as today's news of Theresa May's apparent surrender seems to be, and I'm sure that's how it's going to be reported in the papers, nothing will come of it if she doesn't get enough votes for her deal. You know, her stepping down has a condition. Jacob Rees-Mogg's support has a condition, both of which may be quite impossible. So we'll have to see where we are at the end of the week. But anyway, there we are. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.